What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again, and today we're going to get into fantasy football, specifically fantasy football for the spring leagues. I'm talking about the USFL, which we're getting here in a week, and the MLFB and the XFL. Now, there are some things that you want to do to, take your fantasy football league and, tweak it so that you and your friends can have a really fun time with these smaller leagues. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And really, before we get into that, I really do want to mention and give a shout out to a place where you can go and they'll host your game for you. It's a super awesome place. It's called altfantasysports.com. Go check them out. Go follow them. Give them your support. They've been putting this stuff together and setting it up so that all of us can have fun doing fantasy football with the spring leagues that we love. Now, before we go ahead and get into the actual content of the video, I do want to kind of mention a few things. Right now, if you're thinking, Tyler, this is a week before, aren't we a little late to the game? No, we're not. This is the perfect time to be setting up a league for yourself and your friends. These leagues are, there's a lot of ebb and flow with them. And so with us being only a week away, the teams are now actually, concrete. You know who's going to be on these teams. We have a good idea of who are going to be, the top players on these teams. Whereas, with the NFL, you can do that a little bit earlier because teams are they're established, whereas these teams haven't been established. So this is the first time we're really seeing them to where you're not behind the eight ball or anything with it. Setting things up and doing it this week is actually probably the preferred and better way to do it. Now, I'm going to be breaking down this content into two sections. The first section is going to be, how many teams and how to set up your schedule, for all of the teams, how they're going to play each other, how you're going to set up your playoff, and how you're going to play out through the season. The second piece that we're going to look at are going to be actually the team personnel, so the players that you draft, and how many players you keep on your team, the whole roster that you have, your league, how you have your starting lineups, the bench, your waiver pool, that type of a thing. That's what I'm going to cover in the second half of the video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get into those sections. So if I'm setting up a fantasy football league for me and my friends, if you ask me, the optimal amount of teams to have in a league would be 4 to 6. Now, you could do a 5 and a 7, but I would stick with the 4 or a 6 because it's going to be the even numbers. But let's go ahead and break it down how I would schedule things out and how I would do my seasons. So starting with 4 teams, and this one's the easiest. You have 4 teams. Each team is going to play the other 3 teams 3 times, which give you 9 weeks. You're going to have a 1-week playoff between the top 2 teams, and that's going to get you to your 10 weeks. Now, with 5 teams, it gets a little bit more convoluted. And remember, you've got an odd number of teams. So you have to have one team sit out and have a bye each week. So what I would do is I would have each team play a total of 6 games. However you want to figure it out, it's easy. If you have them play all the other 4 teams, that's 4 games, and then 2 other games, 2 other teams twice, that gets you to your 6 games. That takes a total of 7 weeks to do it. What I would do then is I would then have a 3-week playoff. The first week I would have the first 3 teams get a bye, and then I would have the 4 versus the 5 team play in a play-in game. Then I would have a 2-week playoff with the 4 remaining teams. So the winner of this game and the 3, the 2, and the 1, obviously you're going to have the winner of this one playing the 1, and then the 2 and the 3 playing each other. And then the winners of those games are going to play each other in the championship game, which gives you then your 10 weeks for the 10-week USFL season. Now, going to the 6-team league. When I'm looking at a 6-team league, what I would do is I would break it up into 2 divisions, and I would have 3 teams in each division. I would have you play the other 2 teams in your division 3 times. So the 3 times, so 2 times 3 gets you 6. Then I would take and I would play the cross division games, which would be 3. So 6 plus 3 gets you 9. Now in this scenario, what I would do is I would take the winners of each one of the divisions, and I would have a 1-week playoff with them, and I would then, you'd have the winner from that, and that gives you your 10 weeks. And remember, in these final weeks, you can set it up to have, you got 1 and 2 playing each other. You could have, the second place teams in the divisions play each other, and then the third place teams, and do it that way. You can always set up those consolation games so guys can keep playing, but that's how I would set it up, and that's how I would do it. Now, 7 is convoluted like 5, but it's still doable. I would try to stay at the 6 as the max, but 7 is still doable in this sense. Each team plays 6 games. You got you play each team once, so that gives you a total of 6 games. It takes 7 weeks because each team has to have a bye, and then you have a 3-week playoff. What you do is that the first seed gets a bye that first week. And so they move on to the semifinals, and then you have all the other 6 teams playing in for that semifinal spot, and then you go and you have then the semifinals, then you have the finals, and that gets you to your 10-week season. I would not do 8 teams. There's just not enough players. There's just not enough pool of players to play that, to have fun, because all of the players are already taken up, and there's no space left to really, move around, find new guys, pick up new guys. It's pretty much, rosters are kind of set, and it takes the fun out of it, and really comes down to the luck of the draft, however you decide to do the draft. So I would stay in the sweet spot, like I said, is the 4 and the 6. 5 and 7 are doable. But I would try to stay away from them. If you do have a larger group, I would break it up. So, meaning, if you got 10 people that want to play, I'd break it up into a 4 and a 6. 12, 2 6s. If you've got 8 teams, in 2 4s. I would try to keep it as even number as possible, but like I said, the 5 and the 7 are doable. It's just that not every team gets a chance to play each week, and that's what we want to try to do, is keep everybody playing, because that's why we have fun here. Now, when you look at players to draft and how many players to have on a team, this is what I would suggest. I would not go with a traditional setup. I think for anywhere between 4 to 7 team leagues, this is the way that I would suggest doing it. To me, I think that this way will make it the most fun for everyone, and still give everyone a chance, if something were to happen, and still have fun. So what I would do is I would have each team can have starting 1 quarterback. They can start 1 running back. I would not do 2. I would only start 1 running back. Wide receivers, I think that there's enough wide receivers in the league that you can go with 2 wide receivers. Tight ends, only 1 tight end. A flex position, which can be a running back, a wide receiver, or tight end, I think you could have 1. And then the defense, you can start 1. And a kicker, you can start 1. Now, when it comes to the scoring, when you look at this, I want you to keep in mind that I like the more traditional scoring now, because the quarterback play is so over-skewed in the old. Everything is, you get 1 point for 10 yards, whereas with the quarterbacks, every 25 yards passing, they get 1 point. I like that setup. It kind of nerfs the quarterback a little bit and brings things down, and ups the value of everyone else. I would still keep rushing yards, receiving yards, all the same. Defense scoring, I would whatever you like to do with the defensive scoring, I would go based on that, and the kicking, scoring, whatever you want to do there. However, what I would suggest is whatever you would normally do in an NFL fantasy league, I would cut these down by just a little bit. So I would do about half or 75% of the points that you would normally do. So if something would normally have 4 points on defense, or as a kicker, I would like to see that more as like a 2 points or 3 points equivalent here. Just because you know, I'm limiting what, you know, the amount of players that you have. And two, remember, you can only really have one kicker because each team has only one kicker. So there's really only 8 out there. In defenses, there's only 8 out there. So when you get into it, there isn't that large of a pool to play. So I would kind of nerf these two, and I would take the kind of, like I said, the 25 yards to 1 point for passing. I would do that with the quarterback. And that's how I would do my starters and my scoring. The rest of it, I think you can play with on that. Now, when it comes to actual bench and, the player pool that you can grab from week to week, I would suggest that you can only have on your roster one quarterback. Okay, just bear with me. Now, I would say on your roster, I would say that you can keep 2 running backs. Wide receivers, I would say that you could keep up to 3 wide receivers on your team. Tight ends, I would only allow you to have 1 tight end. Usually there's only 1 tight end per team. Now some teams have 2 good tight ends, but usually that only leaves you with a pool of, maybe 10 guys that you can actually choose from, maybe, and that's a big if. And so what happens is if somebody's tight end goes down, they have to pretty much get the backup, from their team, and it just doesn't make it fun. To where I would say 1 tight end. Now the flex position, I would limit the flex position to only a running back or a wide receiver. I would not allow the flex to be a tight end. So for me, the flex has to be a running back or a wide receiver. It cannot be a tight end. And then the defense, I would obviously limit on your roster to 1 defense and 1 kicker. Now, when I go through and do that, I would limit the bench personally. I would limit my bench to just having 1 bench player. Possibly 2, but on the bench, I would have 1 to 2 players. That's how I would do my bench. So if you were looking at me, if I was looking at the rosters and how many players are on each team, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and possible 10. So for the rosters, there would be a possible of 9 to 10 players. Now, you're going to say, well, Tyler, you're only leaving me with 1 quarterback. Oh, how's that going to work? How are we going to do that? You're only limiting to 1 tight end. How is that going to work? How is that going to do that? I think you need to view the free agency pool. So when you're looking at free agency, when you look at free agency, I think you need to look at it as an extension of your bench. What do I mean? Well, when you have a quarterback go down, if you've got, each team can have 2 quarterbacks. If you're in a 4-team league, which is the lowest league that I would recommend doing, all of the starting quarterbacks are going to be taken. But if you have limited to 1, now there's 4 other possibilities of quarterbacks to choose from. Same thing with tight ends, same thing with defenses, and same thing with kickers. So you can actually play with those from week to week. Now, if you have a 6-team league, then obviously that leaves 2 starting quarterbacks, so that if your quarterback goes down, there's 2 other guys to choose from out there. It leaves the pool open. So as I look at it, the free agency for me in this sense turns into an extension of my bench. And you're limiting everybody's bench to where it makes that free agency pool even more valuable to everyone, and it really makes teams, want to trade guys in and out, want to go through and, move players around, play with waivers and things like that, because that's what makes fantasy football fun. So when I look at this, and as I do that, you need to think kind of a little bit more outside of the box with this to kind of make it fun for everyone, because if not, really the only teams that are going to have fun are the teams that, that ended up drafting really, really well, and sometimes that's just a crapshoot, because in these leagues, we've never seen these guys play before. We don't know, how good they are going to be in this league or not. Do we know quarterbacks are going to, be not good? Running backs are going to be overpowered. So you're going to allow, some ebb and flow with that. The other thing is that you don't need the bench players like you do with an NFL season. There's, with the NFL season, you have a bye week for each team. So you have to figure out, the bye week of your starters, and you got to maneuver around that. We don't have any bye weeks here, so everybody's playing every week. So you don't have to worry about your quarterback sitting out a week and you got to find somebody else to play in his spot. You don't have to do that. So if you got your guy set, you're good. But if you don't, it really leaves this open with this free agency that you could go get a guy real easily and you can continue on and still have a shot at this thing. Because that's kind of the whole point. Again, I'm going to reiterate my point. It's about having fun. And, it's about doing that. And just doing these tweaks, I think, will just up the game of your league and have fun with your league. So if you ask me, I would try to change your thinking into having a smaller roster, less bench players, and really think of free agency as an extension of everyone's, bench. And it really, I think it'll really add fun, to your league and really allow, some more strategy there, and, really gives you some opportunities to really look at players and, kind of decide, okay, do I want to stick with this guy? Or you know what? This guy who is sitting in free agency, he's getting really hot. Maybe I want to, release my guy and bring this guy in and, kind of work it that way. It also allows you to, if your defense is going against a really solid offense this week, what it allows you to do is pick up another defense which is playing a terrible offense, swap your defense out, get rid of your defense, and then, bring in that other defense and possibly be able to get more points that way. Same deal with a kicker, in that sense. So it allows the strategy to happen. So this is the way that I would do it, and this is the way that I would recommend on how to do rosters and, your free agency pool and waivers.
So there you have it. There is my guide to fantasy football for spring leagues. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And I hope it makes you even more excited to go out, start one of these leagues with your friends, and just add that much more fun to the experience of spring football. As always, I want to know your thoughts down in the comment section. Let me know what you think or any other suggestions that you might have to spice things up and to make things more fun as we go throughout this USFL season, hopefully an MLFB season, and hopefully next year a USFL season. All right, guys, listen, I know that you're busy and I know that I'm busy, so let's get on out of here. You have a good night. Bye.